Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello fans, this is Randy Pettitt, racing's greatest showman and your host for Rattling the Rollcage. And as promised, we have got two of the best to ever suit up in the Southeast here today together. You never thought it was possible, but it's right here on Rattling the Rollcage. Before we get started, we want to thank all of our great sponsors that made it possible, including the generosity of the folks here at the Turn and Burn Raceway. You'll be able to check out some footage of this wonderful facility. You can come and check it out, do some slot car racing, RC racing. If you're looking for a gift for a race fan, it's the perfect place to do it. And it's located in the Midway Town Center. And thanks again to Bryant Robertson and all the staff here at Turn and Burn for giving us a great place to bring you this exclusive interview from Rattling the Rollcage. Well, before we get started, I wanted to kick things off by saying we're filming this at a time where race fans and racetracks and race sponsors are struggling a little bit. So we wanted to start out by tipping our hat to everybody out there. If you've got anybody in your family, whether it's you or someone you know, a loved one who's going through the COVID-19, we wanted to let you know our hearts are with you right now. If you've got a small business or your work is struggling, our prayers and thoughts are with you. You know, it's been a tough year for all of us. Bowman Gray Stadium racing did not run this year. Ace Speedway had a very limited schedule, and I'm going to talk to these guys about that in a minute. But we just wanted to kick things off by letting you know from all three of us, our hearts go out to all the families and the businesses and all the people that's been affected. And we're all hoping and praying that we get back to some semblance of normal this year and we get to do what you guys enjoy and these two enjoy especially, and that's go racing. So with that said, we'll get things started. I wanted to, I'm going to start with the champ. Well, wait a minute, I got to narrow it down a little bit. We got both the champs here. Ladies and gentlemen, if there were such a thing as a Mount Rushmore for Bowman Gray Stadium Modified Racing, I think you would have a hard time arguing the point that both of these guys right here would be on that Mount Rushmore. They share a lot in common. They both grew up at Bowman Gray Stadium. Both of their families are deeply rooted in the history of Bowman Gray. And both of these men have set the standard for excellence at the Madhouse. And we're going to talk about that and a lot more things today. I'm going to get things started with the reigning and he's reigning because there was no 2020 season, Burt Myers. 10 championships. You've had a ton of momentum going into 2020, and then COVID-19 hit, and I know that must have really been particularly devastating for you because you had all that momentum. You just got your 10th championship, and you know the year before you won it, but it wasn't in dominant fashion. This past season, the 2019 season, much better year for you. You had a chance at some history, you know, to do 5 straight. That's only been done one time by the great Pee Wee Jones. So your thoughts heading into the 2021 race season, what's going on in your mind?
Well, like you said, just hope, number one, we can get back to racing. You know, I know everybody's been feeling the same thing. It's just weird. And all of us here can agree that the only thing we've ever known since we were kids was going to Bowman Gray during the summer on Saturday nights. And this year, who would have ever thought that wouldn't happen? And with all the other series and all the other racing that's ever went on, we've always said, well, we still got Bowman Gray. And we found out we didn't even have Bowman Gray this year. So as far as momentum is concerned, I'm not really a momentum kind of guy. I feel like that I try to race the way my daddy taught me to race when I was younger, and that was take care of what you need to do, take care of your business, and not worry about what everybody else is doing. So I feel like we can kind of keep that going. As far as being the reigning champion, if nobody was champion this year, I guess that still qualifies me to get 5 in a row. But, you know, I don't focus on that stuff, and I know people have heard me say it for a long time, is I don't have a lot of time to focus on what we've accomplished because we're always looking forward. And I think that's one of the things that's kept me going and kept me motivated. I've been able to create a lot of success from it.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have the other 10-time Bowman Gray Stadium champion here, Mr. Tim Brown. And Tim, I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the devastation of the 2020 season. You did get to race a little bit. You were the Pro Mods champion down at Ace Speedway. Jason and Robert Turner put together a little series in the few events they were able to open and had you guys come and race, and you were able to win that championship. So just a little small feather in your cap, but it must have been awfully strange not going to the Madhouse in 2020.
It was. You know, it's like Burt said, since I was a kid, we've gone to Bowman Gray and watched and participated in some sort of racing at the stadium, and you never thought that you would never do that, right? So when COVID hit and it changed everything, and we're like, okay, we're still building cars, we're hopeful that we'll get to go race, and then we didn't. So Turner and those guys had a few races at Ace, and we went to Franklin County a few times and ran it in a couple tour races, and that's basically all the racing we got to do this year.
Yeah, and for me personally, Burt Myers, it was tough, man. I'm used to being in a racetrack every Friday and Saturday night, car shows, and I wound up going to more NHRA events in Indianapolis than I did at Bowman Gray Stadium, which was strange. Now I've got the $64,000 question. It might have went up to $64 million with inflation, but the question that race fans and people that know you everywhere are burning to know. All right. Did you?
I'm wanting to know, what is it?
Did you pull for Tom Brady or Cam Newton this year?
Well, without getting too political, I think that I kind of focused in on and with a lot of influence from my son Slate. I figured out I was more of a Tom Brady fan than I was a Patriots fan. The Patriots, I just enjoy the way I enjoy watching Bill Belichick and that group, how they just figured out a way to win. And
except for this year.
Except for this year. Well, they lost part of their combination too. So
right.
To answer your question, I didn't watch a ton of football this year. We spent a lot of time doing family stuff and taking some vacations. And I don't want to get off the football subject, but I think we kind of realized that there is a life outside of racing. Not that I'm burned out, not that I'm done racing by any means, but this year is the first time I can remember in my lifetime sitting on Myrtle Beach, middle of an afternoon on Saturday afternoon in the middle of summer with not a care in the world. And I know Tim can relate to that too. Even when we were racing and you're going to vacation and you're sitting on the beach on a Wednesday or a Thursday, you're thinking about, I got to get back. I got to get this done. I got to make sure that gets done. What kind of race do we have this weekend?
It's consumed your lives.
It really has consumed our lives. So the fact that I got to just sit on Myrtle Beach and not have a care in the world was somewhat refreshing. But I'm ready. I'm ready to get back. And like Tim said, no matter what the future holds for Bowman Gray and for us for racing in 2021, we hope we're going to get back to normal, but we have to be prepared for that, whether we are or not.
Fair enough. Tim Brown, the big question I had for you, you got a new baby coming. Tell us a little about that. Congratulations. That's just around the corner as we film this today.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks. 3 weeks away, and that's pretty exciting. It's a little girl, so we'll have what we hope is the perfect family with me and Megan and Cam and Marley. So
for the fans that aren't aware, you have a son, and how old is he now?
Cam just turned 4 in November, and he's a little firecracker.
Before we started rolling,
I got 2 girls. Just wait.
Really?
Before we started rolling today, your son was checking out slot cars and RC cars, and you told me in a private moment this kid's already showing signs of having that special hand-eye coordination at a very young age.
Yeah.
Do we have a budding race car driver there, perhaps?
Absolutely. I'll tell you the most impressive thing, being a dad's new to me, right? Like with Cam being born, and it's things that you learn and you get to experience that's priceless, right? So the very first little car-looking thing that we bought Cam was like a little walker that bounced, and you set him in it and he would walk around. He never got in it. Like you'd set him in and he'd cry. Well, he got out of it, and he would literally pick tools up and start messing with the tires like he was working on it. He'd never even been to my shop. Had no idea. You know what I mean? But he would look at the tires and roll up under it and play with it, and I was like, where did this come from? You know what I mean?
That had to make you feel pretty good.
Oh, yeah. So it's, and I'm sure, Burt, you've experienced this with the kids that you have. So it changed my life. You know what I mean? Megan and Cam and Marley coming has made me a better person on and off the racetrack, I feel like. And there he is. That little kid right there is something else. Hey, buddy. And now you got to watch every move you make in front of him because he's a little sponge. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's things like that taught me.
We'll talk more about that in a minute, because I wanted to talk about earlier in your career and later in the career. I'll get back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Burt, I wanted to flip to you just a minute. I wanted to thank you again for you and your brother and your dad helping us with Tried Racing podcast. I had a great time getting all three of you together. And one thing that I learned that I wasn't really aware of is that you'd become a Mr. Mom. Tell the fans that aren't aware a little bit about that. Your whole kind of lifestyle's changed dramatically in the last couple of years.
Well, let me just. I get a lot of. I get a lot of ribbon for it.
Is your lasagna pretty good?
I'm all right at lasagna, but I can cook. I'm not ashamed to say I can cook. But here's my response to your question and to anybody that's wondering about the Mr. Mom thing. I'm fortunate enough I get to race for a living. Okay, now. If me getting to race for a living means that I have to do some laundry, I have to take kids to and from school, I have to do some cooking, and I have to do a lot of the things that race car drivers maybe think are sissy or maybe think that that's not normal, it gets me the opportunity to race for a living.
And I'll bet you there's a lot of drivers out there that would trade and take that deal.
Maybe, but the thing about it is it's allowed me to race for a living. And it's allowed me, I think that's one of the reasons that I've had some of the success that I've had is because I can put a lot of focus on my racing. And I can take care of that stuff and then do my racing too. And it just kind of fits in our little bubble and it just kind of works for us. It doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes racing money pays house bills and sometimes house money pays racing bills. And it's just a juggling situation where we try to make it work and knock on wood so far it has.
Good deal.
If it makes you feel any better, I have to do some of that stuff too and work.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, Tim Brown.
So it's not just
you are,
Mr. Mom.
Every time I've ever messaged you or talked to you, you're coming back from a shop. Now, for the fans that don't know, you work for a living. You're in cup racing. So tell us a little bit about what you do, who you work for, and then, of course, we know about your race team. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, well, currently shop foreman for Roush Fenway on the Cup team.
Shop foreman. So, kind of, what does that mean? What all are you doing?
Just basically overseeing the assembly of the cars once the cars.
So you're the boss.
Yeah. So once the cars hit the main shop floor from paint shop, body fab, whatever, when they're starting to get assembled to go to the racetrack, I oversee the guys that maintain all the parts, hang the parts on the cars. We chassis dyno the cars all the way till they get put in a truck to passed off to the race teams to go for the event.
Now, 2020 was a very strange year for cup racing too. All the practice and qualifying, all that stuff got eliminated. How did that change your job and your approach from taking those cars to the track?
Well, it made it a lot more stressful in multiple ways. For one, is all of our guys that traveled weren't allowed in the shop, so we couldn't. Wow. There's on airplanes and all that, so they couldn't come back. So it cut my workforce, into 2/3. So now you have a lot less people to get the work done, and then since there is no practice, you're the final call.
Better get it right.
It's got to be right. So a lot of stress on myself and all the employees at Roush Fenway, and we didn't have the success we wanted this year by no means. We've got to get better on that part of it. But as far as trouble-free, we had a trouble-free season. We just got to get our performance better.
Now, who all of you guys got in the driver's seat for this year?
Ryan Newman is driving the 6 car, and Chris Buscher's in the 17.
Gotcha. And both of those guys are wheelmen. They both won at every level. So, of course, Ryan's got a lot of cup wins, and Chris has got one, if I remember correctly, but has won a lot in the lower series. So, hopefully, 2021 a lot better year for Roush Fenway.
Absolutely, that's what we worked for. Yeah, and then thank the Lord that Ryan didn't get killed in Daytona, so that actually hurt us too.
How did you feel when that happened? I know you have a personal connection with him and all the employees there. What was going through your mind after you saw that wreck?
Well, I was on the phone back and forth with the racetrack with our guys down there, like as soon as it happened, and they were all like, man, it's not good, you know what I mean? Everybody be praying, and naturally my phone's blowing up from all of our fans, from Roush and employees and all that too. We were just, we were terrified, for him and his family, and thank goodness it turned out like it did, and then get to have some conversations with Ryan after that. It makes you appreciate life a little bit more.
Well, I've did some videos that some of the fans may have seen by now, but Dale Earnhardt Sr. was kind of the ironhead, and Ryan Newman's kind of proven he's kind of the ironhead too. He's a tough dude, so it was great to see him come through at Daytona. Burt, another question I had for you that I had in my notes here. You have had, this has came up on Facebook and some other places in the past, you've had some opportunities to basically miss some Bowman Gray action and go up north and run full time, from what I understand. Is that correct? And what was your thinking process of how you were trying to go about figuring out what was the right thing to do?
Well, the way my career has gone, we rely on Bowman Gray sponsorship to keep things going.
Gotcha.
So I couldn't do anything to jeopardize, excuse me, to jeopardize any of that sponsorship.
But it's a fact, there were people up there in that tour that wanted you to come
Yeah,
drive
well, I was
full-time,
driving
right?
Eddie Harvey's car.
Right.
We ran the first 3 races. We should have won South Boston if we weren't so stupid. You do need to pit and get a tire when you're running South Boston, but
Right.
we had the race dominated. We just didn't pit. We missed our opportunity there. But either way, whenever I ran the first 3, I think we were tied for 3rd in the points. And there was an opportunity there. Eddie approached me about trying to run for the championship, and you have to understand that it's a double-edged sword for me because God's blessed me with a lot of success in this area. But the one thing that I would love to have would be a Northern Modified Championship. So there was an opportunity there for me to try to go for that championship. But at the same time, I have to look at what's best for me and my family and my team here in this area. And staying at Bowman Gray was really where I needed to be. Now, knowing what we know now, in 2020, I might could have had that opportunity because since we didn't run Bowman Gray, but with this year, with everything that's gone on this year, nothing surprises me at this point.
Well, I just want to ask you about that. There was some.
Yeah,
debate on Facebook.
I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it. I'd love the opportunity. And here's the thing: if somebody came to me and said, "Okay, we're going to give you $200,000 to run for the championship," and I could put that money where I needed to put it and still run for a championship, then of course that would be something to look at. But if I have to look at what I'm going to lose or what I may jeopardize by missing Bowman Gray to go do that and not race in this area, I can't take that chance.
Understood. Tim, speaking of championships, there was a point in time just a few years ago, you had 10. This guy over here had 6. Okay. Now all of a sudden, this guy's knocking on the door, setting some history, and has an opportunity to win 5 straight. You went from 10 to 6, and now you guys are even. And I know you well enough to know that's kind of gnawed at you. Talk about that a little bit, and talk about what your race team is doing today to end the streak.
Well, for one, Burt having 10, he's earned it. You know what I mean? He's a great race car driver. He's got a great race team, great sponsors. So do I, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not looking at it as Burt's tied me for 10. Burt's still going to race, and I'm still going to race.
Right.
You know what I mean? So 20 years from now, when we both retired, let's see where we're at. Burt makes me a better race car driver and makes me have a better race team because we have to get more money, we have to get newer cars, we have to find more speed. And I'd like to feel like we cause him to do the same thing. So I like to feel like I've helped him get 10 championships because if it wasn't for me having 10, he would have just been okay with 6, but he had to go bust his ass and find more money and faster cars and whatnot to win 10. I don't like it that he's got 10, but it's just going to make me better because if I had 11 or 12 and he had 6, I really wouldn't be out looking for more speed and looking for better cars to get better, right? So that's how I'm looking at it, and I like a challenge, you know what I mean? And it may be somebody else that rises up that challenges, but I just about bet the bank that me and that cat right there will be vying for the championship when the stadium gets back racing.
So, here we are, 10 and 10. Did you ever think and dream that not only you, but you too, because you guys kind of grew up together. He got a little out of the gate a little quicker than you in the modified, but you guys grew up at Bowman Gray. You guys have been doing this a long time. You guys watched Paul Radford and Philip Smith and Johnny Johnson and Gary Myers, Ralph Brinkley, Don Smith. I don't leave anybody out. Got all these great guys. Brent Elliott, Tim Dwiggins, all these guys that won that are on the top 25. Frank Fleming. All these guys that came up when we were kids and teenagers, and now here you are, 10 championships. I think you're number 2 on the wins list right now, correct? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, and this guy over here's number 1. And main event wins because Jimmy Johnson. We're going to be hearing.
Don't forget Jimmy.
We're going to be hearing from the all-time winningest Bowman Gray Stadium driver on Rattling the Rollcage soon. I promise you. Okay, but. Could you ever dream of that, man? I mean, how incredible was that?
It's until somebody says it is hard to believe. Going and sitting in the grandstands and watching. And I remember the first time I got in the modified, I thought to myself, how do they do this?
Yeah.
How do they do it?
I did the same thing.
And just by the time you
I
touch,
was about a second off the pole, and I thought I was going to wreck. I was on a ragged edge, and I was a second off the pole. So it's incredible what you guys did.
Growing up, we were always told growing up, if you can race a modified and then you can run Bowman Gray. You can drive anything. And I used to think, well, it's just Bowman Gray, it's a flat quarter mile. Like, what does that mean? But it teaches you not just about a race car. It teaches you how to handle situations. It teaches you how to adapt.
But we have some situations there, don't we?
Absolutely. So just the format, the formula that Bowman Gray has teaches you, it shapes and molds you into being a championship caliber person. And the fact that we've been able to do it since we were kids, for 20 plus years now, I can take what I've learned there and go to Thompson, Connecticut, or go to Stafford, Connecticut, or go to Caraway, wherever it may be, and I can relate a certain situation to something I've already been through at Bowman Gray Stadium. And I think that that's one of the things that's helped us be successful. But to think about, I don't even know what my win total is. I got 10 championships, I know that part. But other than that, I don't know how many wins I have. But just like Tim said, my son's asked me before about wins and championships and stuff. I said, son, I'm not done counting yet. There'll be a day, me and him will be sitting on a front porch somewhere in a rocking chair and say, man, you remember how many you got? Yeah, I remember that. I mean, that's where I picture myself being. There's not a number that I'm shooting at. Just like he said, whether it's 10, 12, or 15.
I like to think I know race car drivers pretty well. And I'll bet more of the stuff you focus on is the ones that got away. The championships that got away.
Oh, yeah. There's about three I can tell you right now.
The big race wins that get away. That's how race car drivers think. You're not counting up. You're probably.
I used to. There were back when I was trying to get to Tim. Like he said, what he said was dead on. We make each other better, and it's just like the old saying: "You're only as good as your competition." There's been certain, I don't want to call names or racetracks, but I can think of a certain situation in particular where there was a guy at a local racetrack who was killing everybody week in and week out, had better stuff, and they just couldn't beat him no matter what. Well, that guy's only going to be so good because of his competition wasn't where it needed to be. When you come to Bowman Gray, you better bring your best every time.
In every division.
Yeah. And so, like he said, we've made each other better. When we go out and he sets on the pole and wins a race, I go back thinking, all right, I got to beat him. What have I got to do? And he does the same thing. So it's a good competition. It's healthy for both of us to be that way because it has put us where we are today. So, but as far as numbers are concerned, I'm just going to keep racing and keep doing my thing until I feel like I can't do it anymore.
Jim Brown, I want to follow up with you with that same vein. When you won, I was there when you won championship number 10, and you were like, man, I'm not happy with 10. I'm not happy with 80-some wins. I want
90-some.
90-some. I'm sorry.
See, he knows.
I know.
He
I
knows.
lost count too.
But maybe he knows because he's leading. I don't know what I got because I'm second, so that's different, right?
Yeah. The Bowman Gray expert don't have his sheet notes, but you're just not satisfied.
No,
you've never
absolutely
been.
not. No.
From the first day I met you, you've never been satisfied, and I guess that's part of what makes you guys so good. You're not satisfied.
Well, it didn't matter. When I was a small kid playing baseball or football, I wanted to win. I wanted to win, and when I started racing, I was like Burt. I sit in the grandstands and watch my grandpa's cars, and I just wanted to do it. You know what I mean? I had that drive to just want to do it.
And we're going to talk about those families in a little bit, both of them, because they're both go all the way back to the very beginning of Bowman Gray. But continue.
And once I get the opportunity to do it, I was just like Burt. I was like, man, I don't know about this.
I was announcing at Bowman Gray when you started, and there were a couple times I didn't know if you were going to make the field. And I think in fact you didn't make the field on the show.
I always did. Okay. Yeah.
I know it was close a couple of times.
It was close a couple of times.
You almost got bumped out of the field.
But I remember my very first win. Your dad Gary was on the pole, and I beat him for the pole, and Gary ran second to me, and that was it. That was it. That's the end right there.
That's exactly how I got my first win.
I'm telling you,
Daddy was on the pole and I beat him just like you did.
Once you get
thank
that,
you, Gary Myers, for both those wins.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
He's in the equation.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, once you taste that success.
And when you first started, you were like, man, I just want to win one race, right?
I just wanted to race.
Yeah, you just wanted to
I never even thought I'd ever win.
When did you, how long were you doing it before you felt like, hey, I think I can win a race? How far along were you?
Well, I guess my second season, me and Alfred Hill were tight, and you guys, your dad, everybody helped me, right? Because I didn't have any money. Like they'd give me tires and whatnot. And I think, one of those second 25 lappers, I ran third, and there were good cars behind me.
Right.
And I ran third. It ain't like I lucked into it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And talking to my grandpa and all, and he's like, you're not bad. We just don't have the money to get you the real good motor. I mean, Johnny Gregory built my motor for like $2,500, you know, back then.
That won't buy one part now, right?
No.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was like, well, this is, you know, we'll just go and we'll do the best we can, you know what I mean? And then very fortunate that the next season, you know, we got a little bit of help, and I wound up winning some races. And that I remember that night like it was yesterday, you know what I mean? And Gary was one of the first ones that came to me like, man, you done a good job. Because he was right on me. And he's like, if you'd have bobbled one time, I'd have beat you. But I didn't, and I won. And I can remember driving home that night. I was like, okay, this is no better feeling in the world. Right at that time, this is what it's all about. And to me, as far as racing now, like outside of racing, you know, you got your wife and kids and all that to give you that same feel. But every time I win, I have that same feeling going home. You know what I mean? And when I win a championship, that feeling lasts all winter. You know what I mean? Because that's what we work for. And like we had 10 guys at the shop yesterday working from 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock last night to try to beat that guy.
Folks, we're filming this in January,
You know
early
what I mean?
January, and there's no Bowman Gray Racing until, you know, April. So these guys, you know, 4 months to go, are in there working. Burt, I wanted to ask you a little bit about going back and remembering your first win, and you beat your dad, and I remember that actually. And you know, you came into Bowman Gray and you were Rookie of the Year, and you just made a big splash right out of the chute. But there was a lot of pressure on you, probably a little bit more than Tim, because your dad, you know, was a little bit better known than Tim's family. Both
Well, he
great
was still
families, both
racing
great.
too. I was still having racing
exactly.
against him.
A lot of pressure on you getting in there. What's this kid doing in a modified? He should be running a buzz bomber. You know, talk about that first win, beating your dad to get your first win at Bowman Gray.
Well, it's tough because of course you got a lot of people. Well, of course his daddy let him win. If you ask my daddy, he'll reassure you that he did not let me win.
I know Gary Myers well enough to know. I don't think he let you win.
But it was a 50 lapper. It was 1998. It was a 50 lapper, and they drew the top 6 like they do now. And I don't know where I qualified. I qualified in the top 6.
So you were in your second or third season?
My first season was 95.
Okay.
So my first win came in 98.
Okay.
I kind of was landing right in the middle. I'd finish 10th and they draw 8th.
Right. Yeah.
Or I'd finish 6th and they draw 12th.
Right.
So I just, for 3 years, it seemed like I just couldn't get where I needed to be.
Yeah.
But just like Tim, my first year, Daddy helped me get a car together, and he said, there it is. And I said, what do you mean there it is? He said, if you want to race it, you keep it up. And at the end of the year, I actually had to take out a loan to pay Freeman off, to pay the tire man.
Okay.
So, but that's what's made us.
Welcome to racing, right?
That's what's put us where we are. And these young guys that are coming up that want to know how do you do it, what makes it happen, that right there is what makes it happen. Daddy doing it for you and you showing up with your helmet is not the way to make it happen. If you want to learn how to make it happen, you better get in there and figure out how to make them go fast yourself. But going back to the win, I think, you know, at Bowman Gray, of course, you play games on restarts. And I don't know if I jumped or he jumped, and they had to do another start. And I remember taking off in high gear, and I'd never done that. And as I got going, and I beat him. And after the race, of course, he grabbed me and hugged me and everything. And then we got back in the pits after everything got cooled down. He said, did you take off in high gear? And I said, why? And he said, you did, didn't you? Like, he's quizzing me. That was whenever that was when my all moment of,
when
you
your
know
dad's
what?
trying to learn something from you.
I figured something out.
I figured something out. That's Gary Myers. He's, you know, and all these, you know, Junior and Ralph and Johnny and all these guys that were behind me, you know. And then my dad's asking me how I did that restart because he wants to learn how. I mean, that's when my moment was of, you know what, I might just get some wins here. And I got my first win in '98, and I think I've won 2 a year since then until 2020, of course.
Gotcha.
So
we were all losers.
yeah, but man, like he said, just the feeling you get, because I know he's been in the same situation, especially when you're running for a championship. I don't care how fast you are, I don't care how good you are, I don't care how good your equipment you have. There's times, lots of times at Bowman Gray where you're on the way to the racetrack, and it's not that you're nervous, you're not scared, you're not anxious, you're just uncertain because it's Bowman Gray. What's going to happen tonight? Man, how's this going to turn out? So when it does go good for you and you're on the way home, you feel like a king.
It's like relief, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It really feels like, man, golly. But you know what? After a day or so goes by, you're like, here we go again.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons that it felt so good to kind of reboot this off season. I call it off season. This year when we didn't race, it can feel like a job. It can feel like a duty. You know what I mean? Even though we love it, even though we enjoy it, and even though we give everything to it.
I understand, and I'm the same way.
And wouldn't take anything for it. But it's just it sometimes feels like that grind, especially when you get down to the end of the year. And I always make the joke of when you're running for a championship and you get down to the end of the year, it's kind of like riding a motorcycle up the interstate. You're not worried about yourself, you're worried about everybody around you.
Right.
That's Bowman Gray in a nutshell. So, yeah, it's been a long road, but it's been pretty good.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.